dissolving? How do I see intellectual property evolving, and how do I see that issue being resolved? You know, it's a really tricky one. There's a big gap between how consumers see intellectual property. For example, if you ask your average consumer, they will tell you that the fine for downloading a song illegally should be $100, roughly, versus how the law actually prosecutes individuals who commit intellectual property violations. If you ask software developers, most of them don't think that software patents should be allowed, yet we have a very thriving industry, especially here in Seattle, that traffics in the transfer and the collection of royalties from intellectual property. So I think that the hopeful answer is that the law should reflect and allow the average consumer to do what they want to do. And the law right now basically makes it somewhat commercially unviable for copyright holders to pursue individuals, and it protects service providers like Comcast, like us, like others, from being sued by the actions of its users. And it's actually a very short provision in a law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's a very, very big law passed back in 2000 that ISPs, Internet Service Providers, pushed for. And that little paragraph called Safe Harbor Provisions protect newspapers from being liable for comments their commenters leave. For example, England did not have this. And I went there back in 2008, and I was talking to The Guardian, which is like their New York Times. And they had a big problem. They were talking about their communities and how they wanted to foster communities. And then they said, well, we have to moderate and read every single comment that comes into our system. And I was flabbergasted. I'm like, why? They said, anytime somebody makes a libelous statement on our website, we are liable for it. I don't know if that sounds crazy to you, but it sounded crazy to me. It's like saying if somebody goes into a store and steals something, that the store is then responsible for the theft from the manufacturer. Or that you are here standing up and somebody pickpockets you, then the entire building, the company is liable for the fact that you were pickpocketed. These are the kinds of things that prevent businesses from growing. These are the types of things that prevent commerce from occurring because we're too busy covering our asses versus innovating. And this is the kind of stuff that we want to make sure is protected going down the road. And I think that laws and especially business attitudes towards piracy will change as I realize that most people will accept that this is the new norm. And that while it's wrong, the way to combat intellectual property theft is actually to create better services, not to try to shut people down. So, yes?
How do you deal with potential content that might be considered offensive, or does that put you in a bad spot?
Sure. How do we deal with potentially offensive content? So, I'll tell you a funny story. There was a picture of a stove, unlit, with a pan, with a kitten in it. And we posted it. It was a funny caption. There's no fire. Clearly the kitten's not in pain. He's just hanging out there because it's a thing he can sit in. If you've ever had a cat, it sits in things. That's what it does. So, whatever you don't want it to sit in it, it'll sit in it. So the cat's just sitting there, and we had no problems. There was a follow-up photo where the owner had temporarily placed a glass lid, so the kitten's looking up to the glass lid, and there was a firestorm of outrage. Still no fire. Cat's perfectly fine. Lid on, no problem. Lid off, no problem. Lid on, holy crap. And we're asking ourselves, what are they reacting to? It's very clear that the owner cares about the cat. I mean, how many of you hang around the kitchen with a camera just in case your cat sits in a pan? So this person clearly cared for that cat, and so we deal with those issues kind of on a case-by-case basis, and we have to let people know that people have different senses of humor, and we're going to cater to the majority in the middle, and that if you want to have a slightly more racy sense of humor, you can create your own site.